it's important to associate positive images in public spaces with our expressed identity. So in doing so, we become more and more culturally tolerant and aware of injustices and how they can enhance or debilitate communities and the wider society.
Manchester is, it's not different from all other cities, but one thing it does have is a sense of civic pride.
And why I think it's important what we see in our public spaces. I think you can't be what you can't see.
We've got a strong identity and you're allowed to put other parts of your identity over the top of it. You know, you can be a very proud Mancunian but have Pakistani heritage. And I don't think at the moment it reflects, it's an easy thing to say, it doesn't reflect that part of our identity enough. So it's not like broad enough.
It matters to me because it's a question of who the ownership of public space really lies with, I guess. And I think if we had the opportunity to change these things, to consider public space as more of kind of like an open area in which change can happen and in which new things can be kind of brought up. And basically we change our idea of what, like the level of permanence that's needed with these things, we'd be able to get a lot out of it because it would just, you would see people starting to interact with the space more.
What I think we do really well in Manchester is give ourselves a collective identity of being Mancunian. And it is that I'd like to see embraced, but not at the loss of the voices we've not yet heard.
The elements of the public space which contain monuments, statues, etc., are a particular form of communication with the general population, and they carry with them a sense of this is a narrative that the city believes in and wishes to push forward. So it does create a story.
In the run-up to the Womanchester statue campaign that led to the Emmeline Pankhurst statue, walking around the city centre and realising there were 17 statues of figures and the named individuals in the whole of the city centre, one woman, royalty, 16 men, and that underlying the importance of having statues of women and redressing that balance.
I'd certainly be actively pursuing something that told Manchester's diverse story. That's the thing that I think is missing right now.
People must be educated about Manchester's past. What do we know about the lives of Pablo Fang, Edward Nelson, and whose statues and or at least plaques should be visible in Manchester's public spaces?
At its simplest form, the civic space is reimagined, things taken out, but maybe in one of the big parks, a sculpture park. Why don't not throw away our statues, but augment them, use technology and create a major new permanent attraction?
The education must be dynamic, it must be ongoing, and it must endure the test of time.
Manchester's very low on green spaces compared to some of the other towns. You know, they've got acres and acres in Manchester they've pulled down, and yet, you know, the new stuff, some of it's very cramped without thinking green spaces.
We must ensure that the education is decolonized and that it becomes a mandatory element in the national curriculum.
I think really part of the main change is that element of the argument, the understanding that our public space can be used for other things. So I think that would be the kind of nexus of change for me that I would want to see, and you from that would start to get like changes in things that are displayed.
I'd want to do like a public forum and ask people. So sort of similar to, I'd rather know what people want than me making those decisions for them. So I think this is really good that instead of just giving people a survey and hoping that they might answer it, it's good to actually like speak to people and know what they want. So that's kind of what I would do if I was in charge of Manchester, just speaking to people rather than deciding for them.
I think a Black History Trail initiative would be a great way to begin addressing issues about where racism originated, how it affects us today, and what could be done to eliminate it.
You know, who should we represent and why? There's the common sense group of MPs that are very much, you know, don't tear down our past. We've got to recognise our history and, you know, all the good and all the bad. So I don't think we should take down anything with an, you know, an ounce of controversy in Manchester. I think that, yeah, the common sense group of MPs are saying, let's use the statues to highlight the past, good and bad. So I think Manchester should do that.
I would like to avoid taking down statues and monuments without first considering why they were erected, the context behind their existence, and how they could still serve the population, and the positive lessons that can be learned from finding out more about them.
I definitely would put something to celebrate like the diversity of people, because even though there is like a few things out there which just show diversity, I feel like there's nothing really out there that is just like saying what kind of a city we are. It's just like, oh, these people came from our city in the past, look at them. It's nothing like, this is what Manchester is now, this is like who we are. There's nothing really like that.
Not everyone has smartphones or laptops or iPads and things. Is possibly whatever would be on a QR code or whatever might be on an app to be accessible in like a paper copy, maybe at libraries, or, but again, like if it's something that can be touched in different hubs of Manchester, not just the city centre, because not everyone goes to the city centre that much or goes to libraries.
Maybe we aren't taking into account young people's views or voices of their history and what's happening now. The fact that it's just a statue there, they started questioning, you know, the colours, the shapes, could they be interactive? Could they have voiceovers? Would it just be a text? So they started looking at also at how accessible statues are as well and where they're placed.
Churchill, yeah, he's great for the Second World War. Then there's other things that he did that not everyone kind of knows about. So he's not actually this great person that everyone kind of pretends he is. So it'd be good if sometimes there's that recognition, because I don't think there's anything wrong with, you know, saying that, you know, we've done some heinous things in the past. I don't think there's anything wrong with admitting that.
Well, I'm not confident that any public art we did now would be good. I almost think that if we did something for the Pan-African National Congress, it should be a building that hosts events, or maybe a scholarship that teaches people something. I think it's old hat, or maybe a light show. You know, what about the huge, beautiful digital thing on the side of a building? I mean, I think representative art now is the exclusive domain of outside football grounds.
My major concern is reflected in a quote by Martin Luther King Jr. that simply says, "Our lives begin to end the day we become silent about things that matter." This work could be done now, but next year, this time, it could be forgotten. And that's my major concern. So, for instance, in the light of Black Lives Matter and other similar protests in Britain, and which are still continuing now, doing nothing about these statues and monuments is simply not an option.
This is an opportunity to rethink what we do with public space. So I would say, rather than think about more statues that counter the statues we have, is there a better way to remember? Is there a better way to engage